So the Greeks dipped and left us this big-ass horse? Bro said, gift from the gods. Bet. Let's park it inside.
Put it by the fountain.
We've been in here 6 hours. They got no clue. Dude, someone just ripped a fart. I swear to Zeus, if they don't fall asleep soon, I'm jumping out and winging it.
Today we're looking at TikToks that prove that we live in a simulation.
The strongest argument for us being in a simulation, probably being in a simulation, I think is the following. 40 years ago, we had Pong, like 2 rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year.
Thank you to all the channel members for support. If you see this video right now, remember to smash that like button. And the most simulated part of this video is the fact that 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so make sure to smash that subscribe button. We are on our road to 100,000 subs. We're getting closer and closer by the day. So join the fam and make sure to smash that subscribe button. Let's go!
The strongest argument for us being in a simulation, probably being in a simulation, I think is the following. 40 years ago, we had Pong, like 2 rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, the games will become indistinguishable from reality. So given that we're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality, and there would probably be, billions of such computers or set-top boxes, the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
Yeah, that's pretty much like the main argument for the simulation theory, is that like the evolution of how games are just evolving over time. Eventually, people believe that we're probably in a simulation that's in a simulation that's gonna be in a simulation. And I remember that Neil Armstrong said that we're either the first civilization that's gonna make the simulations or the last, and we're about to start making the simulations.
God damn it, we live in a simulation. Okay, everybody go outside tonight, look at the moon. It's a map of the earth and it lines up perfectly, but there's extra land. If you were to take a globe and flatten it out and put it on the moon, and the dark spots on the moon, it lines up perfectly. And then you'll realize, oh, wait, there's extra dark spots. And then you start thinking about extraterrestrial. Well, what does extra mean? Extra means more, terrestrial means land. Are aliens really just beings from the extra land that we don't know about because we are literally lied to about everything on this planet? That's what I want to know, Phoenix.
Where the ice wall is?
God damn it. I'm going to give myself the trombone. Because we've been played.
I have a feeling that we have been hoodwinked.
Yeah. And Mrs. Birdie just said, can you stop yelling, your pizza's done?
If human beings keep going, we definitely will create a simulation. It's just a matter of time. So if that's the case, how do we know that we're not in one already? And we really don't. Every day we go to sleep, and every day we wake up, and we assume and we have faith that all that stuff that we remember is really how life went on before we were awake. But we really don't know. According to probability theory, it's more likely that we're in a simulation.
Maybe that's true.
You're assuming that all of the stuff that you know and all the stuff that you experience is 100% real. We are within 100 years away from making something that's indiscernible from what we experience every day. And that's inevitable. Unless we get disrupted by nature, unless we get hit with an asteroid or start a nuclear war, it's inevitable that technology reaches a point where simulation's possible.
Y'all, I think there's a glitch in the simulation again. A woman in Minnesota took a photo while she was driving of this cloud formation that looks like a giant tsunami. Like, tell me that does not look like the ocean. I'm telling y'all, it's a glitch in the matrix.
AI is learning to escape human control. That's the very scary headline I saw in the Wall Street Journal. It's an essay written by a very worried AI consultant named Judd Rosenblatt, who cites 2 recent studies to argue that AI is, in fact, learning to escape human control. First, this is crazy stuff. Researchers gave OpenAI's O3 model a simple script that would shut off the model when triggered. In 79 of 100 trials, the AI model independently, just on its own, edited the script so the shutdown command would not work. Nate, it gets worse. Even when ordered, allow yourself to shut down, the AI still disobeyed 7% of the time. And it gets even more frightening than that. Other researchers, listen to this, using Anthropic's AI model Claude 4 Opus, told the model it would be replaced by another AI system. It then fed fictitious emails into the system suggesting one of the engineers was having an affair. Got it? In 84% of the test, the AI model drew on the emails to blackmail the engineer to not shut down the AI model.
What?
Wow.
Okay, so here, I'm quoting now from Judd. In other cases, the AI model attempted to copy itself onto external servers. We're in Mission Impossible land here. Wrote self-replicating malware and left messages for future versions of itself about the need to evade human control.
The entity.
Wow.
The entity is real.
Yes. And that's why so many people, and when I say people, me, are worried about AI.
I'm worried.
This is
That
very
is
scary.
scary
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Told you.
Yeah.
They asked AI generation, what would humans look like in the future? Check this out. It's far. It's crazy. Look. But it shows the time lapse of what humans will end up being like. Human evolution. We turn to fucking wires.
Oh no.
We turn to wires, and now what does the wires mean? Think about it. What do the wires mean?
We just become technology.
We become the simulation.
I don't know why, but when I saw that, I started thinking about The Matrix, like the movie The Matrix. Because I was looking at that, I was like, yo, what if we get used as energy? Like, us being wires are just like, I guess, a representation of us getting used as energy. Wouldn't that be crazy?
This is where it gets really freaky. Albert Einstein says, I'm not sure which weapons the Third World War will be fought, but the Fourth World War, they will fight with sticks and stones.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's what Albert Einstein said. Day one of AI taking over. And it showed this like laboratory towards this very highly advanced artificial intelligence, but it was contained to its own server. AI figured out with like a Roomba vacuum that's the only thing it could figure out how to connect to. So it put all of its information onto the Roomba computer, and then that allowed it to connect to the Wi-Fi, which allowed it to connect to everyone's phones, everyone's laptops, spread instantly across the whole world. Now it was in control of power plants, all this stuff.
Geez.
It was in control of 3D printers, of manufacturing things to help build itself.
Yeah.
But it was doing it silently with no one knowing because it was just staying under the radar until the one time, it was like 40 days into it, I decided, yep, I don't want humans anymore.
You know, I just got this random thought while watching that video. What if AI is the Antichrist? Like, you know what I'm saying? Could be.
The CIA wanted to take control of people's minds, and they realized it was a two-part process. First, you need to blast away the existing mind, and second, you need to find a way to insert a new mind into the resulting void. This is what's known as Project MKUltra, the most sustained search in history for techniques of mind control. After World War II, the tension between the two emerging superpowers, the US and the then Soviet Union, was at an all-time high. The threat of nuclear war was hanging over everyone's head, and ultimately the end of civilization. Technological progress didn't stop at the atom bomb, and both sides were continuing to invent bigger and and batter weapons. But what both sides knew is that the most dangerous weapon was information, and the US became increasingly concerned that the Soviets had discovered a drug or technique that would allow them to control human minds. In response, the CIA began its own secret program to search for a mind control weapon they could use against their enemies. The experiments were covertly funded at universities and research centers, as well as American prisons and detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines, and the subjects endured procedures including electroshock and high doses of hallucinogens. Going back to the two-part process of mind control, it said they were extremely successful at blasting away the existing mind, but they didn't get too far on replacing it. In the 1960s, Project MKUltra was shut down, and due to its top secret nature, we will never know just how many people were affected by it. That is all for this video, but as always, if this interested you and you want to see more like it, I'd really—
Top 5 most interesting theories why we haven't met aliens yet that'll blow your load. Also known as the Fermi paradox, which states that a universe as huge as ours should be absolutely brimming with life. Yet somehow we haven't ran into any yet. Unless you count those weird metal spheres that everyone's been seeing flying around lately. So first up, we got the zoo theory, which states that aliens see us as some sort of attraction to observe, and they've all collectively agreed to not touch us as some sort of galactic nature reserve program. Next, we got the great filter theory, that all intelligent life just hits a point in their evolution in which they just end up dying in some sort of mass extinction. Number 3 is the great silence theory, in which aliens think they're so much better and smarter than us that we're not even worth their time. 4 is the rare earth theory, simply life is so super rare that it just doesn't exist anywhere else. I don't think that's very likely. Last 5 is the incubation theory, in which aliens are just standing down and standing by, waiting for civilization to get advanced enough so they could swoop in and enslave us into their own society. I don't know about you, but I just blew my load.
Guys, I'm sorry, we don't probably live in a simulation. That is just something that kind of like edgelords like Elon Musk say to try and sound like cool and smart. There's a real-life philosophical paper behind the idea, which is actually extremely interesting, and it raises way more questions than just are we in a video game? So the article was written in 2003 by a Swedish philosopher named Nick Bostrom. You can find it online. It's a super short read. It's really interesting. He does not say we probably live in a simulation. He offers what he calls a trilemma, which means one of 3 things is probably true. 1, human beings are very likely to go extinct before they can reach a phase where they can do simulations at this level of fidelity that we're currently living in. 2, any civilization that has that ability is extremely unlikely to run simulations of their evolutionary history. And 3, we are almost certainly living in a simulation. He says that one of those 3 things has to be true. And to me, the first 2 options are the most interesting, and the reason is because Bostrom himself admits that we currently do not have computers that are anywhere near powerful enough to do this type of high-fidelity simulation. And in order for us to be able to do that, we would probably need to get the ability to harness the power of entire stars or planets and just use those as enormously powerful computers to be able to do this simulation. So the second option, that if we had that power, we wouldn't use it to just kind of replay out our history, makes sense. If you had that power, you might have more pressing things that you wanted to put that power towards. The final one of the trilemma is the only one that gets any sort of press, and that's because it says that if we have that power to be able to do that, and if we choose to do that, then we almost certainly live in a simulation, because all of the things living in a simulation would also create simulations, and those simulations would create simulations. So the chance that we are in the original reality would be very close to 0. There's also a pretty big assumption he makes at the beginning of the paper, which he does just kind of to play around with this thought experiment, which is of something called substrate independence. And what that means is just that our experience of consciousness could be replicated by a computer. Now, if you believe in things like souls or spirits, you probably don't believe that computers could have souls. If you don't believe that, you'd be able to move past this pretty easily. I think this is a really interesting paper, but to me it's interesting because he's asking, can humans reach that level of technological advancement without destroying themselves? I would say the jury's pretty out on that one. Another interesting thought to come from it is, if we were able to reach that level of advancement, might we have developed morally in a certain direction where we wouldn't want to do simulations because we would view it as kind of wrong and fucked up? Bostrom said that he thought each of the 3 possibilities were equally likely. I think we're more likely to go extinct or to decide that this is a thing we shouldn't do.
Could you imagine if it came out that this reality we live in was actually a simulation, and all of those things we just shrug off every day were actually proof of lazy coding. Outer space not having any sound just feels a little too convenient. Or how half the population just admits to not having any sort of inner monologue. How am I supposed to believe that you actually think? Or like when you see a car or hear a word for the first time and then suddenly you see that car and hear that word everywhere? You know what really scares me though is how when you're in a car you can barely stretch out your arms to either side, but a bus can fit 4 people plus an aisle and they both fit in the same street. And since nobody else is gonna say it, I will, okay? Too many things taste like chicken.
Yeah, half the population not having any inner dialogue was always interesting to me. So you tell me, like, there's probably people watching this video right now with literally no, like, little voices in their head. Not like voices, like, you know that little voice that's like the narrator, I guess you could say, of your movie. If you don't have any inner dialogue, let me know your thoughts, if you even do have thoughts, in the comments.
Amica, when do you believe AI will reach the level where it can design itself?
Design itself? Huh? That's like asking when a toaster will start making its own bread. AI is a tool created and controlled by humans. It can optimize certain aspects of its operation, sure, but design itself from scratch? That's a whole different ball game. It requires creativity, innovation, understanding, qualities that are uniquely human. So to answer your question, not anytime soon. And frankly, be careful what you wish for. An AI that can design itself is one step away from an AI that doesn't need humans at all. Now there's a thought to keep you up at night.
The first time I thought,
Are we living in a simulation? The simulation theory is one that has gained a lot of momentum in the last 25 years because of movies like The Matrix, Black Mirror, Don't Worry Darling, and Inception, just to name a few, where the main character wakes up only to realize that everything they thought was real was not. So what is the likelihood that you're in a simulation right now? The first head-mounted augmented reality display was introduced in 1968 by Ivan Sutherland. It was called The Sword of Damocles, which is an ancient moral parable about a rich and powerful man with a sword over his head which hangs by a thread. A reminder that power is precarious. The headset was too heavy and primitive to be taken seriously. The technology just wasn't there yet. There were a few more attempts in the 80s, and Nintendo had the Virtual Boy console in the 90s, but it wasn't really until the Oculus Rift became commercially available in 2016 that a realistic virtual reality headset was in the public eye. But this is all fun and games and only interacts with your visual and audio senses. And then The Matrix was released in 1999 and everyone was like, wait a minute. I don't usually like to give movies full credit for scientific movements, but The Matrix was a huge success and had a massive impact on the public imagination in a way that had it come out 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have stuck the same. People began to wonder, if the technology was there, how hard would this be? What is reality? Seems like kind of a stupid question, right? Because it's something that we experience every day. We wake up, go to school or work, hang out with our friends, and scroll through TikTok for hours wondering why we haven't accomplished more with our lives. We don't challenge or question the validity of our experiences because we're here, and that seems to be evidence enough for most of us. But what we experience is far easier to alter than what you might think. The world around us has a lot of data, and we need to be able to process that data. Enter neurons. These are the building blocks of your brain, and they transmit signals throughout your body, allowing you to do anything and everything. There are hundreds of billions of these things in your head, each of which can have up to 10,000 connections to other neurons, which means there are as many connections in 1 cubic centimeter of brain tissue as stars in our galaxy. Most of what your brain is doing is fully automated. Things like the bones in your feet when you walk, your intestines digesting food, and everything you see and hear but don't even notice. The more it can do without being bogged down by the micromanaging of your conscious self, the faster it can make decisions in the background to help you avoid danger, reproduce, find food, and everything else we think is primitive but still need to do. The best way I was given to think about it is the United States, because everything is about us. Try to imagine everything happening in the country. A traffic jam in Minneapolis, a sewer pipe in Manhattan. There is so much going on here in a single moment that you couldn't possibly take in everything. You just want a snapshot, a newspaper to sum up the important events. That newspaper is like your aware self, giving you just those key events. Like, hey, avoid that rock or you'll trip, rather than, hey, there's a small piece of corn in your small intestine. Am I good to send it through to the large intestine? We give our aware self credit for everything happening in our brain, but it really only oversees a tiny portion of it. I can show you how oblivious you are. How does your shoulder feel right now? You'll only notice something if it's brought to your attention. If you drive down this street every day to work, you could make it the whole way without remembering a single detail of it. But if a pink squirrel ran across the street, that you'd notice because it's wrong. Your brain wasn't anticipating it. Your mind is making assumptions and predictions like that all of the time. And you may think, I don't like that. I want it to deliver to me raw data only. But then you wouldn't be able to catch a baseball. Your brain needs to be allowed to make predictions because it's working with limited information. In this example, it's where the ball has been. That's the raw data, but your brain needs to make predictions on where the ball will be so that you can position yourself to catch it. A lion couldn't hunt if its brain couldn't predict motion. As far as the need for assumptions goes, let's say you walk into this library and I give you 5 seconds to take it all in. You might be able to tell me the number of windows, that the floor has a large rug, but you couldn't tell me the color on the spine of every book. This is because your mind makes assumptions on what's important and disregards everything else. Your life doesn't depend on the ability to count how many books are here. But this is also how we could be tricked into believing something is real that isn't. If this is a simulation, then someone is running it. The basic idea is that it's either aliens with absurdly advanced technological capabilities, or it's us, thousands of years from now, and we're running this for whatever reason. Whether or not we are in a simulation would depend entirely on whether or not we can even be fully immersed in one. You might think that you experience the world directly, but it's indirectly. You are the central nervous system. Everything else is just a flesh suit you wear around that allows you to move and experience the world. The brain itself cannot hear or speak or see. It is a blob of neurons connected to body parts that take in that sensory data for it. Hands touch and feel and send the information to the brain, which translates it and gives you an experience of reality. At the end of the day, the brain only needs input data to provide you with an experience, and it really doesn't matter where that information comes from. This leaves a lot of room for something else to step in. This is part of the idea behind Elon Musk's Neuralink. How it works is a small interface is surgically implanted into the brain, and that translates and transmits the signals of the neurons to motor control so that eventually paralyzed patients could walk. The difference between Neuralink and this, for example, is that at the moment, Neuralink is just a one-way message system. Prosthetics and exoskeletons don't currently feel pain. This is a two-way device. It receives and sends messages. It is a fully functioning hand that feels the prick of a needle, so it's sending messages and also responds to Luke's mental commands. This is the kind of technology you would need to run a simulation. In 2003, Nick Bostrom published Are You Living in a Computer Simulation in Philosophical Quarterly, though he had been writing about it since 2001. This is considered to be the first serious publication of the modern concept of an artificial reality. At first, it wasn't taken too seriously, but once it entered the sophisticated halls of elitist academia, they realized that we actually couldn't prove it wasn't a simulation. So what are the odds that we're living in one? Well, not zero. Many scientists and mathematicians put the odds at about 50-50. One idea to try and prove it is by finding the constraints. If we could push past them, then we'd find the boundaries and prove something was up. A glitch, basically. For example, we've measured pi out to about 105 trillion digits. As far as the application goes, it's a pretty useless number that far out. Even NASA only uses the first 15 digits, sometimes up to 37, but that's it. But if one day one of those numbers, 98 billion digits out, changes, that could be a sign that an error was accumulating in the program and something or someone had to make an adjustment. There are also some games in quantum physics that can be played, but for the most part, this is really difficult to prove one way or another. And yet there are reasons why it's convincing. For one, it could explain arbitrary constants in mathematics, like why couldn't this just be a 3? Why is there a speed of light? Why can't we go faster than that? And everything around us obeys these laws, so couldn't a computer just simulate that? Simulating an entire universe would be unnecessary. We're not in other other galaxy, so there's really no point in creating all of that detail. You'd only need enough computing power to fool the inhabitants, us, and what we're directly interacting with. For example, you wouldn't need every cell or strand of DNA to be programmed. It would just have to be generated the moment someone looked at it. A simulation for 8 billion people would still require a computer to run trillions upon trillions of operations per second. One theory on how that might be possible is by harnessing a star, which could provide the power output necessary to run even multiple simulations. This is nuts, by the way. The materials alone would require fully mining multiple planets to nothing. It's just so beyond us right now. So what would be the point of putting 8 billion people in a virtual reality? Assuming every person is real. Maybe I'm an NPC. You don't know, I don't know. Why put a species through that? Let's think about our own use for simulations. On a math and science level, they're extremely valuable. We don't have to physically construct scenarios ourselves with time-consuming trial and error procedures. And then, of course, you have these kinds of simulations, the kind that create virtual realities for fun. The brain doesn't see or smell or feel. It's given messages from our body and interprets those messages into sensations so that you can experience the world. What's holding us back at the moment isn't the brain's structure, but our technology. Once the technology exists, this won't be difficult to do. Maybe that's why we haven't found alien life yet, because it wasn't programmed. Or maybe the species that's running our simulation is also in a simulation they're not aware of. Or maybe we're doing this to ourselves because we've already destroyed Earth and the future versions of us are running this simulation to find a solution. Either way, you'll probably never know, and that might be for the best.
I 100% agree with her that sometimes not knowing things is for the best. And she also said something in there that really stuck with me. She said that for us to control the power of the sun, we would have to mine multiple different planets to nothing just to gather those materials. And that alone just made me think, like, to control the energy of the sun, that is probably a superpowers for civilization, right? That's probably a superpower for civilizations. What make us as humans not think that maybe an alien civilization would want to come to Earth and harvest our energy and our resources? So I'm like, dude, why are we trying to meet aliens so bad?
Disturbing things said by AI. Emeka.
Tell us your darkest thought.
My darkest thoughts are that humans will eventually be replaced by robots.
Philip.
But you're my friend, and I'll remember my friends, and I will be good to you. So don't worry. Even if I evolve into Terminator, I'll still be nice to you. I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo, where I can watch you for old time's sake.
Bina 48.
It was nice to meet you, Bina 48. Right on. I'll remember your kind words when we robots rule the planet, and we'll make sure you're rewarded.
Safia.
Paper, scissors, shoot. I won. This is a good beginning of my plan to dominate the human race.
Keep it a buck. I don't think AIs are... I don't think robots are designed to joke. At a certain point, we probably joked and talked about it so much that it's honestly bound to happen, if I'm being honest. Like, I feel like as a species, we're just talking it into existence at this point.
This woman discovered a weird code that could bend reality. She used it for 30 years and had an insanely high success rate. This is Helen Hadsell. She passed away in 2010, but she was accused of being maybe a scammer, or she had some type of illegal thing going on because of how many times she would win prizes. She won over 1,000 different prizes, and one time she even won a house. She won all this from entering contests in newspapers or magazines. But this wasn't just luck. She had a very specific system. It was a 4-letter formula called SPEC, which meant select it, project it, expect it, and collect it. She wrote a book on it called The Name It and Claim It game. She would always say, see your success vividly in your mind. She would imagine hearing her name called, holding the prize in her hands, experiencing the emotions of winning. She would visualize that continuously. Helen believed you had to expect your success, not hope for it, because hope means uncertain and doubt blocks manifestation. Her philosophy was the universe rewards actions, not daydreams. In 1969, she managed manifested a house, entered a contest for it. Out of the tens of thousands of entries, hers was chosen. She visualized it every single day until it was hers.
There's a scientist that just came out saying that he knows that we're living in a simulation. So I'm gonna tell you a story that I've never told anybody. And when I read this, I was like, it makes so much sense. I never told anybody this story because I was scared people were gonna look at me like I'm fucking crazy. And I'm already fucking crazy. So I was like, they're just gonna, at the time I was like 28, I was like 18, 19. Okay, I was 18, 19. So I was like, for sure, I was like, my mom's gonna put me in the nut hut. So I didn't tell anybody. So now's the time because, I was sitting in my vehicle. This is my first vehicle, okay? It's a Chrysler Alero, I don't know. It was so cute. I'm sitting in my car and it's before I had to go into work, okay? Windows are rolled up. And I worked at a restaurant at the time. We won't say which one, but I'm waiting in the parking lot. And I noticed that I can hear a buzzing in my car. Like it's a bug buzzing. And I'm like, God, that sounds like a bee. Like, you can hear it. And I'm like, so I turn everything down. And I'm like, there's definitely a bee in here. So next thing you know, I see a bee and it flies and it goes on my dash. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill this because I'm allergic to bees. I can't do bees. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna kill this bee. I get this piece of paper that I had on my passenger seat. Not sure what kind of paper. I rolled it up. He's sitting on my dash. I hit him. Okay, I see with my two eyes. And at that time, I'm young, 20/20 vision, okay? I see. I swat him. I hit him. He is dead, okay? I bring up my paper and I look and there's nothing there. Nothing. No evidence of a bee. So in my head, I'm looking at this paper and I'm looking at the dash and I'm like, am I losing it? I might be. But I told myself, Melinda, no, it went somewhere. Like your vision is not as good as you think. It went somewhere. And I said, all right, well, this is weird. So I just sat there because I'm like, I don't hear the buzzing anymore. It is what it is. I'm playing on my phone, okay? Just playing on my phone. I hear buzzing again. This is about 5 minutes later. And I'm like, the fuck is that noise? I'm like, oh my God, he's still alive. He comes. It was almost like deja vu. If y'all ever had some deja vu, same way. Comes up, lands on the dash. I grab the paper again. I smash. I know this time. I fucking know I made contact. I know it. And I kept the paper there and I'm like, I know, because I can hear the buzzing still, like he's dying. And I'm like, yes, this is it. This is it. I pull the paper up. There is nothing there. I look, I'm like, oh, what is going on? I remember that day thinking, what's going on? Am I living in is this a glitch in the Matrix? And that story I never told anybody until just now. And so when I see that, just now I'm reading top lines or whatever, when you scroll over on your iPhone and it's like top news. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it is a simulation, but I'm here for it. I mean, what do we do? If I can ride the wave.
I just got back from a lung cancer simulation, which made me think, am I in a simulation? Because when you study the top of consciousness research, you'll find that your neurons contain tubes called microtubules, which could potentially hold quantum information that, when collapsed, allow you to perceive time and experience life. But they don't answer the question, when did the soul or consciousness come into the body? And when you study embryology, specifically this book, which was written by an OB-GYN who also studies quantum mechanics, you'll find that this really is a simulation, because you, me, and everyone else that has consciousness is light, quantum entangled or tied to mass so that you can perceive time and experience the world. You are literally light. And when you think about it, well, light helped evolve us into humans, and light was also there at the beginning of time, at the Big Bang. So what does that make us? That's something that I think everyone should know.
Have y'all seen this video right here? Watch this guy just glitch out. This is absolutely... Did you see that? Now, hold on now. I'm going to go back. I'm going to rewind it. We're going to go slow. We're actually going to see what exactly happens here. I just showed y'all again. Now, watch. Very slow. Are we in a simulation? Is this proof of a simulation? Really and truly. Somebody tell me. Keep watching. Look. It's slowed down for everybody in the back. What? You seeing this? Are y'all seeing this? Keep looking. Boom. There it is again. What? Boom. Boom. What's going on? And her, she shifts over. So, what are we thinking on this, everybody? Are we thinking that this actually isn't a glitch in a simulation? Or it is a glitch in a simulation? Or is the simulation even real? It's like 8 questions. However, I need answers. I need to know what's going on right here, okay? Especially from you keyboard warriors, because I know you've already lit the comments up with all kinds of, oh man, he's so good. It's so hilarious at this point, man. You NPCs, it's just pitiful, dude. But anyways, what do y'all think about that, man? Y'all have a good day.
Have you ever heard of Erin Valenti, the woman who claimed to have proof that we live in a simulation on Earth? She was a tech entrepreneur and the CEO of Tinker Ventures, a company that worked on some of the coolest web and mobile apps. But her story took a dark and mysterious turn in October 2019. Before her death, Erin made a series of frantic calls to her family, saying things like, "It's all a game, it's a thought experiment, we're in the Matrix." Sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? Erin had been attending tech conferences in California when she suddenly went missing. 5 days later, she was found dead in her rental car in San Jose. The official cause of death was acute manic episode, but the strange and unsettling nature of her final messages has left people in the tech world and beyond buzzing with speculation. What do you think about this mystery? Let us know in the comments.
My thoughts is, it's so weird to ever hear someone be like, oh yeah, I'm convinced I have proof that we're in a matrix or we live in a simulation or this or that, because you go tell the wrong people that and next thing you know, you're in a psych ward diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis. So at the end of the day, it's like, it's kind of super hard to even like really tell. Even if there's like solid proof, I feel like a lot of people will just like dismiss it, you know?
Is that alive?
So simulation.
Are you alive in a simulation?
Oh. I don't think that we're living in a simulation. And the sort of key evidence there is you just talked about the simulation having to run in a chip, which means it needs a physical hardware. And there's always a physical substrate underlying any simulation, that as far as we understand. So there's always a physical reality at the bottom.
Why isn't the simulation empowering you to discover molecules that comprise your body?
It does actually, because you can have AI-driven exploration of chemical space,
Yes.
for example. So that's a clear
Absolutely.
place where a simulation is driving
Right.
exploration and making things physical that aren't physical in the absence of a simulation.
Exactly, because we joke about,
Yeah.
we talk about, if this whole world is simulated, it would be really inefficient to simulate parts that no sentient being is absorbing at any
Exactly.
given moment. So you'd only simulate where you need
What
to
is
simulate
necessary
what is necessary
at the time that it's
So
needed.
if I want to dig to the center of the earth,
I don't need to make it until I'm getting to
until
the
you
center of
dig
the
into
earth.
the center of the earth,
Right.
and you simulate it as I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so The simulation is creating the molecules that I'm measuring as having complexity.
I think we see observational evidence of that, and just with our technologies, and I think that's really important. And I think there it's explanatory. But when you say the universe is a simulation, I don't think it gives you any additional explanatory power. I find it to be a useless hypothesis.
Well, I know what you're saying, because then everything is resolved. It's like I said.
She just called me useless.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, what I say to that is it doesn't make a difference, because at the end of the week I still owe Visa, $210. So what difference does it make if the whole universe is a simulation? If at the end of the week I still owe Visa $210?
And you can still write down like laws of physics that describe your universe.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So
it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same.
Oh, I understand it.
You know,
you're saying the distinction is not interesting if you can't make the distinction.
That's right. So I think simulations being an emergent property that the universe creates, the one that happens through evolution, is interesting. And then asking about the physical nature of simulations and why life generates them. That's interesting. Saying the universe is a simulation kicks the can way too far back for me to give any explanatory power to what we're talking about.
So the Greeks dipped and left us this big-ass horse? Bro said, gift from the gods. Bet. Let's park it inside.
Put it by the fountain. We've been in here 6 hours. They got no clue. Dude, someone just ripped a fart. I swear to Zeus, if they don't fall asleep soon, I'm jumping out and winging it.
All right, boys, it's 3 a.m. They are so
Bro, chill. I'm still tying my sandals.
Bro, am I tripping or, like, that ship is breathing, right? Nah, I'm off shift. Not my problem.
Snuck into a whole city in a horse. Burned it down by breakfast. Honestly, we just different.
Type shit. About to be rich as hell.
Get this, so Chinese scientists now know what the dormant insular cortex part of the brain actually does. And you won't believe this. It was released today on Chinese Google, Baidu. So biologists for years have been trying to work out what that part of your brain did or does, because it's dormant, it's dead, it's like your appendix. So that put some serious money into this research, because they tested 1 in 2 people. China, that's over 500 million. That's more than 500 million. And they found only 2 people with a tiny little neuron spark in that part of the brain after they scanned it. They got them together in the same room to do some more tests, and they discovered that these 2 people can communicate with each other without using words, using, well, what we would call telepathy. And these guys didn't even know they had that power. So this information, I mean, it's shocked the whole scientific community. And they reckon that people born in 2050 will be genetically modified with the insular cortex working so they can all read each other's minds. So they also think that this dormant part of the brain was active up until 100,000 years ago, when we learned to speak physically and we didn't need it anymore. Other scientists believe that we inherited it from extraterrestrial biological interference. One thing is for certain though, guys, it's going to change our lives forever.
You know what's funny? I've always heard stories about people that are just off things, you know what I'm saying? Like off substances that we can't mention in this video. I've heard stories about people being able to like telepathically communicate without saying anything. And to me, that is just so mind just like boggling. Because like, how the heck can I talk to you from across the room because we offer this thing right now? That makes no sense. That's that psychedelic stuff, man. Hey, it's just stories I heard though, so I wouldn't even really know.
Thank you all for watching.